Wonderhussy here, back at the side of Interstate 15 for another episode of What's Off That Exit. This is a little series I started to investigate some of the most desolate exits on Interstate 15 as it crosses the Mojave Desert between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Okay, if you watched the first installment of this series, when I explored the Rasor Road exit, well, you might remember that I took Rasor Road to the north into this vast and extraordinarily desolate Cronies Valley. Okay, Rasor Road is just over that rise there, and I did go off into the desert here and explore the beautiful but apparently environmentally endangered Cronies Lakes, which, when I came out of it, led me back up here onto this exit, which is the next exit to the south, Basin Road. Okay, how many of you remember seeing the sign for Basin Road when you're barreling along the highway with the air conditioning blasting and all that money's just burning a hole in your pocket because you can't wait to get to Vegas and spend it all on wine, women, and booze? I guess wine and booze are technically the same thing. Anyway, this is Basin Road, and you can see that it intersects with Cronies Lake Road, which, just like over at the Rasor Road exit, Cronies Lakes Road is actually part of the Arrowhead Trail. Okay, remember, the Arrowhead Trail was this very, very early highway that was sort of graded out in the early days of the automobile that took travelers all the way from Los Angeles to Salt Lake City by way of Las Vegas. Well, I guess even after they built this big, bad interstate that totally bypassed poor little Cronies station, the gas station that used to be here, there are still sections of the old Arrowhead Trail that are still paved and you can still drive on. I don't know how far this pavement extends to the south from here, but it sure would make a convenient bypass for those times when Interstate 15 is all clogged up and you're going crazy because you really gotta take a whiz or get to where you're going. I mean, just like at the Rasor Road exit, there is a sign saying that the road is no longer maintained by San Bernardino County. But I have four-wheel drive, good tires, and an insatiable curiosity. So let's get in the car real quick and see for ourselves how far we can go down the old Arrowhead Trail, paralleling the mayhem on the interstate. Okay, well, it looks like the pavement doesn't last very long because there's some kind of wash coming through here. I don't know what wash this is. There's no sign. Oh, it says Mojave River overflow. Wow, okay, so I guess the Mojave River, which, well, being as it cuts through the Mojave Desert, isn't much of a river most of the time. Well, I guess occasionally when we get real heavy rains, the overflow from the Mojave River comes through under the interstate. They had to build this bridge over it. And apparently, it also wiped out a pretty significant chunk of the old Arrowhead Trail. So, anyone who thinks they're going to use this as an escape route from Interstate 15 better have high clearance and probably four-wheel drive because I guess depending on conditions, this Mojave riverbed could get pretty muddy. Like I said, I do have four-wheel drive. And I do have a little bit of time to spare, so I'm going to keep on going to the other side of the Mojave River, where it looks like the pavement picks up again. All right, well, unfortunately, the pavement only lasted for another half mile, if that. In fact, I would say all the way from the Basin Road exit, there's only maybe a mile and a half of passable road, and then it kind of goes out into the Cronies Lakes, and Lord knows, winds up into those mountains or something. So you're definitely not going to want to use that as a shortcut on your way back from Vegas. But that's okay. I actually didn't make this video to go poking around the Cronies Lakes again. We already explored the Cronies Lakes in my last video. Okay, if you watched my last video, you might remember the Cronies Kitten sand dune and the old abandoned trailer of one James Proctor. Well, if you remember in that video, I had no idea who James Proctor was or why somebody had told me about the ruins of his abandoned trailer. But in the meantime, I found out some more information about his family. Okay, remember I said that he was probably related to this guy named Elmo Proctor, who operated the Cronies station, gas station, out here somewhere. Well, I didn't really have any evidence that they were related other than they had the same last name, and they both lived in the same desolate valley. But in the meantime, I found out more information in the course of my research online. In fact, Elmo and his wife's homestead is just on the other side of I-15, a few miles that way. So I think for this video, I'm gonna go to the south side of the Basin Road exit off Interstate 15 and try to find the old Proctor Homestead. Okay, interestingly, the Basin Road exit leads to the Rasor Road off-highway vehicle area, which, if you're not from around these parts, an off-highway vehicle area is basically a stretch of desert where they don't care how many vehicles razz around, tearing up the fragile ecosystem and dumping unspeakable amounts of litter. Just kidding, there's actually many fine folks who enjoy the all-American pastime of four-wheeling, myself included, and most off-roaders are pretty conscientious about not trashing the desert, although I'm pretty hard-pressed to defend them and their sport just looking around where I'm standing right now. But to be fair, I guess a lot of this litter might have just been left by people pulling off I-15 to take a whiz because they didn't want to risk the gnarly bathrooms at the Shell station ahead. Either way, this is apparently a huge area for off-roaders, and I'm frankly gobsmacked that I don't see or hear any because this is the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is like off-roaders spring break. You can't go anywhere in the desert this time of year without running across at least 1,003 side-by-sides. But anyway, fingers crossed, maybe I won't see any out here today. Oh, what's that? Looks like there's some kind of little wooden cabin or something out there. Let's go check that out before we continue along our way to Grandma's house, aka the Proctor Homestead. Oh my gosh, this is actually really sad. To me, this looks like somebody's homemade truck camper. You know, like that would slip right into the bed of a pickup truck and some guy would go hunting or hang out off the Basin Road exit and camp out in it. I wonder why it was abandoned here. I mean, it looks like it's in pretty good shape and really an interesting construction. I mean, it's made out of, well, not the finest wood. Like those of you who've been watching for a long time might remember I once did a video interviewing this guy in Vegas who had a wooden truck camper that he built himself out of cedar, and it was absolutely beautiful. This isn't quite as fancy, but it's still kind of cool. I mean, it had windows and it looks like it was even insulated to some extent. Oh, that's a real small cab over bunk. Yikes, wouldn't want to have to spend the night in that. Frankly, I wouldn't want to have to spend the night in this at all because it's full of unspeakable filth that has accumulated over the, I don't know how many years it's been sitting out here in the desert, but I don't know. What do you guys think? It doesn't look like it's been here that long. You know, this kind of wood would be cracking and peeling in the desert sun if it had been out here for a while. So it looks to me like somebody dumped it here not too long ago. In fact, they also left their racing fuel can and their propane tank. This is why I find myself having a hard time defending off-roaders and off-roading culture at times. Yes, it's true that, well, I was gonna say most off-roaders are classy folk. There's a significant number of them who aren't. Anyway, I'm gonna get back in my car and keep on a-cruising looking for Elmo and Patsy Proctor's homestead. I just remembered the wife's name was Patsy. Actually, her name was Ella May, but I'm embarrassed to say that I mixed up my Elmos and got Elmo and Ella May Proctor confused with Elmo and Patsy, the couple who sang Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Whoopsie! Please forgive the historical inaccuracy and enjoy this beautiful footage of me driving through the desert to Elmo and Ella May Proctor's homestead. Okay, wow! I actually made a video here many years ago at the lonely little grave of Dolores Holland. Okay, again, if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you might remember I came here, oh my gosh, probably back in like 2018. Anyway, I'm not gonna spend too much time here today because I have already covered this site, but essentially it's the lonely, and I do mean lonely, little grave of some poor little girl who died out here named Dolores Holland, and I'm guessing she was here because her parents worked for the railroad, okay? This, believe it or not, is the once great metropolis of a place called Crucero, and I'm guessing Crucero was never really a metropolis, and it probably wasn't even much of a town. It was really just one of those places where the railroad could stop and take on water. Because remember, back in the days, they had steam engines, and when you're traveling through the Mojave Desert, well, there aren't a whole lot of places where you can take on water to keep the steam going to power the locomotive. I mean, you probably noticed that I was driving alongside railroad tracks to get here. Well, that's because this was Crucero, and little Dolores Holland presumably lived here. But as sad and lonely as this grave is, I do think it's pretty cool that people, off-roaders, history buffs, have taken the time and trouble to put up this fence around her grave and leave all kinds of decorations for her. I mean, look at that. Somebody even came out here and put up Christmas decorations for her. Isn't that sweet? Well, I figured I might as well come on into her gravesite and leave a tribute myself, because the last time I came out here back in 2018, I didn't yet have all these golden roses that somebody sent me. These are the roses that I like to leave on lonely little graves all across the desert and beyond, just to honor the hardy souls who once lived here. You know, wouldn't want anyone to think they were forgotten about. Now, this grave does already have teddy bears and flowers and all kinds of stuff, but I'm gonna add a rose right here so the ghost of little Dolores Holland knows I do care. Just like all these other folks who have been here over the years. Actually, I think the coolest thing that's been left here are all these old railroad spikes, and some of them were bent like candy canes, and so they laid them out here to look like little hearts. Isn't that what these are supposed to be? You know, little signs of love. Sorry about my shadow. There's one. There's one. There's one. I just think that's pretty dang cool, and it just goes to show that for every jackass off-roader who leaves his empty racing fuel jugs and propane tanks in the desert, there's 5 or 10 others who take the time to maintain a lonely little gravesite like this. Okay, believe it or not, Dolores Holland's grave and the once thriving water stop of Crucero are real close to where Elmo and Patsy Proctor had their homestead. In fact, I think it's just right over there. So let's get back in the car and see if we can find it. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is it. The site of Elmo and Patsy Proctor's homestead, okay? Elmo Proctor was the guy who ran the Cronies Station gas station I was talking about in my last video. James Proctor, I think, was his grandson? I'm not sure, but if what I saw online is to be believed, well, there should be some information here at the old homestead site, which also looks like it's become a really nice campsite. Look at that. There's a fire ring. Somebody even laid in some old branches. There's even a grill somebody made out of cinder blocks. In the shade, the lee of this grove of shady, cool tamarisk trees. Okay, these are tamarisks, aka salt cedars, and they're invasive. They're not native to the Mojave Desert, so the environmentalists are doing everything they can to tear them down. But I'm here to tell you, there's just something really evocative about a shady tamarisk grove, almost like being in a desert cathedral, especially on a quiet, still day like today. Just amazing. Anyway, there's quite a bit going on here at the old Proctor Homestead, which I'm guessing that's what this is. It's a grave, it looks like, for, well, it's either Pop and Dale Black or Pop, Dale, and Black. I don't know who they are, but there's a lot of cool stuff. Somebody's really taking care of this sign. There's little jewels stuck on it. There's a little, I guess that's like a little bird. There's even a little Scotty dog with a butterfly on his nose. And look at that, somebody wrote, "We love you." Pop, Dale, and Black. Well, maybe there's some information on this plaque. Look, somebody screwed a piece of plexiglass into the stump of this dead tamarisk and wrote, oh, look at that. "In loving memory of James Alfred Proctor Jr., born December 13th, 1943, died December 9th, 2010. I'm guessing that is the James Proctor whose trailer ruins I allegedly explored in my last video. It says he was born in 43, and Elmo Proctor opened his store, I think, in 25. So, I don't know. Time-wise, it seems to me like he's probably Elmo's grandson. I don't know. Unfortunately, it doesn't say on here. I mean, there's a picture of him. He looked like a pretty cool, salt-of-the-earth desert dude wearing a trucker cap. He's got a beard, driving some kind of old, what is that, a Chevy Blazer? Probably hauling ass 4x across the desert. Then it says he was married for 32 years and still in love. And it looks like he had daughters, because it says Honey's girls. And apparently Honey's girls could do any work a boy could do. And then I guess he had grandkids that he was passing on the Proctor tradition to at his most favorite place, the Proctor family homestead tree. Okay, I'm guessing that's where we are right now, the Proctor family homestead tree. Oh my god, I thought I heard somebody walking by, but it's so quiet today that it was just the flapping of a bird's wings. Very peaceful out here. Anyway, it doesn't say who Pop, Dale, and Black are. I mean, there's a few more photos, but it's just him and his grandkids, him on his anniversary. Look how cute. So I'm not sure about the Pop, Dale, Black, but I can say with a pretty high degree of confidence that he was related to Elmo Proctor, and I just think that's kind of cool that I figured it out by myself. Nobody emailed me this. I figured it out by myself looking at Google Maps. Man, do you see what I mean about this tamarisk grove almost being like a little cathedral? I mean, the way the light filters through the branches of these trees. It's just a really cool, exceptional place, and somebody made it even cooler by putting a kitchen table and 2 chairs out here. I mean, you could hang out here in the shade and have a pretty nice time. You know, if you were camping out here, you could have a big old campfire, cook up some burgers or whatever, and then come up here and sit down, eat them in the shade of the trees. What's this? Oh man, there's a bunch of interesting stuff over here. First of all, there's a bucket somebody nailed to this tree. Oh, look, it's full of water. That might not seem exciting to you, but if you were crawling across the Mojave Desert, say trying to sneak into the United States or something like that, boy, this could be life-saving. I guess because it rained the other day, this bucket collected rainwater. And even though it doesn't look like it's the cleanest water in the world, it could be a real lifesaver. Although, now that I'm looking at it, hold on a minute, look at that, there's a piece of tubing going into it, and then there's this 5-gallon bucket beneath it with holes drilled in it and a piece of PVC pipe, and all of this is sort of leading back into the trees. This tubing is coming from deep in the ground where I guess there's some kind of water source. Oh my god, forget that bucket of nasty rainwater. Look at this. There's an actual well with a pump. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I don't need to remind you that we are in the middle of one of the most barren and inhospitable landscapes on the entire planet. I mean, Interstate 15 is just back there on the other side of that mountain. So next time you're blazing along the highway, well, just take a minute to stop and think about all this stuff that's going on right on the other side of that hill. Right off the Basin Road exit. Imagine that. Okay, there's this jug that's attached to the pump that says, use to prime the pump, please refill. CCC, what is that? California Conservation Corps? Gosh, I don't know. So I guess this pump will work if you prime it, which I'm not sure what that means. It says, oh, prime pump. So I guess you pour water in here and that gets the pump flowing. And then you can have as much water as you want for yourself. Or it looks like there's a little dog bowl here too. How cool is that? It says CCC 2019. They just put this in 2019. Gosh, am I correct in assuming that CCC stands for California Conservation Corps? Whoever you are, guys, I salute you. This is super cool, and I feel like, well, I came all the way out here. I might as well prime the pump. Okay, let's see. I guess I unscrew the top of this and then just pour it in here. Oh yeah, look at that. The pump's already going. Let's see if it'll work now. Ah! Look at that! I'm making water in the desert. Ooh, and it's putting out pretty good too. She's a gusher. Really, really cool to see something like this in the middle of the freaking desert. You know, it just goes to show that there is water out here. Even in the most barren wasteland in the Mojave Desert, there are watering holes out there. You just have to know where to look. Okay, well, this is good to know. I actually filled my water jugs before I came out here thinking, ooh, what if I get stuck in the sand and I need drinking water? Silly me! I didn't realize I could just fill my jug right out here with fresh, cool, clean Mojave aquifer water. Oh, in fact, I'm going to try to drink some of this. I mean, is this a bad idea? Maybe it is a bad idea. I mean, if it was an emergency, I would totally drink this water. It looks clear and it looks clean, but man, you just never know. I'm filming this a few days before New Year's and I sure don't want to miss out on another New Year's party. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and fill the primer jug back up. Leave everything just the way I found it. And that's the least I can do after these people did all this work building this thing. Man, I have so much respect for people who spend their days doing cool stuff like this instead of just driving around blowing stuff up. You like that? Stuff. I almost said a bad word and I couldn't maintain my family-friendly status with that kind of language. Look over here. It's a solar panel that I guess is powering the motor to the pump. Isn't that how that works? You think, as someone who lives in the desert myself with a well that I rely on for flushing me toilet, that I would understand how these things work. I do know that whenever the power goes out in Tacoma, which is not infrequently, we can't turn on the taps because we don't have any drinking water. So yeah, I think you need some kind of power source to keep the motor running to get the water coming up from deep underground in the aquifer. It does. It says, this panel provides water to the pump. Please be kind and leave behind. Really sad that they even have to write that, but you know how people are. Look at these stickers too. It looks like some other explorer has been out here. There's one that says Nevada_explored. And there's an Instagram and a Facebook logo. And then look at this, Ruin Runner. It's got California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona on there. Historical expeditions. Wow, I wonder who that is. If you happen to be watching this video, call me, man. You sound like a kindred spirit. Okay, well, believe it or not, even though it's only like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I have to be mindful of the fact that it's going to be dark in like 30 seconds because it's friggin' winter. And I got to be able to get out of this place. You know, I did come quite a ways off of Basin Rd, off of the exit to get here. Don't think you're just gonna make a quick pit stop on your way to from Vegas and check this out. This is an expedition. You know, all of this isn't exactly right around the corner from the Rasor Road Shell Station. But before I leave, I want to explore around this area just a little bit more. In fact, it looks like up on the hill here, there's 3 wooden crosses. Isn't that a country music song now that I think about it? 3 wooden crosses. Well, I just happen to have 1 more golden space rose. So I figured I might as well hike up and check out these mysterious crosses up close and see if they are worth leaving this at. Okay, it's really interesting because these 3 wooden crosses are sort of on top of a hill of sand, which I think might technically be called a hummock. I think what happens is when the sand blows around here, it gets caught up in the root systems or the branches of these, you know, creosote bushes, tamarisk trees, and eventually over the years piles up to create enough of a hill that it made me out of breath just hiking up it. But it does also provide a pretty cool view of the old Proctor, what did they say it was called? The Proctor Homestead tree. And the rest of this gorgeous desert surrounding it. Okay, let's check out these crosses. So mysterious. Oh, look at that. There's even a solar powered light shining on each one. Oh, and the one in the middle has a crown of thorns on it. Yikes, is that supposed to represent Jesus? I mean, I'm not much of a Christian, but I do know that a man named Jesus was nailed to a cross and wore a crown of thorns, and people came up and prayed at his feet, and then he started singing, "Always look on the bright..." Oh, wait, hold on. I think I'm getting that mixed up with a movie I saw. I think Jesus was nailed to a cross, but then mysteriously his body vaporized from the cave that they laid him in, and, well, we all know the rest of the story. At least I think that's the rest of the story. Okay, well, I thought this was going to be like crosses marking Elmo and Patsy's grave, or Elmo, Patsy, and their dog Spot's graves, or something like that. But I think, isn't that just like a Christian thing to put 3 crosses on the hill and then the one in the middle is for Jesus? Or is it like I don't know, is this one too hot, that one's too cold, and that one's just right? Or, wait a minute, is it the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost? Or is the Holy Ghost just a Catholic thing? Oh gosh, I don't know, but I feel like it wouldn't be offensive or out of place for me to leave a rose for Christ. Oh, that sounds like another country music song or a romance novel. A rose for Christ. She thought she'd never marry, but one night after Bible study, the Spirit entered her, and the Lord came unto her. Boy, talk about a rom-com. You think we could get Matthew McConaughey to play Christ and Renee Zellweger to be the girl? Ruh-roh. The stillness of the desert is being shattered by the whine of side-by-side engines, and so I guess that's my cue to get out of here before a bunch of OHVers roll up and take offense to me talking about, well, me talking about a lot of things. Anyway, that's about all there is to Elmo and Patsy Proctor, or the Proctor family's lonely homestead site in the beautiful, I don't know if this is also considered the Cronies Valley on this side of I-15. I think this whole thing might be the Cronies Valley. Just outside the settlement of Crucero, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. But no matter how you pronounce it, it sure is a beautiful spot, and it would be an amazing place to camp out overnight. You know what I mean? You'd have shade, wind protection, water, a fire pit, and I'll bet you anything, the stars out here are unbelievable. We are still an hour and a half from Las Vegas. The closest town, if you want to call it a town, is Baker, and as impressive as that thermometer is not really putting off a lot of light pollution. I might have to come back out here sometime and camp out here myself. I guess I would just have to make sure it wasn't on a busy holiday weekend when there's sure to be 1,001 side-by-sides. Okay, well, that's about it. I sure hope you enjoyed this little foray down into the hinterlands behind the Basin Road exit. And I know for this one I went pretty far off the interstate, but hey man, sometimes you gotta take that dirt road all the way to the end to find that juicy jelly center of the jelly donut that is I-15. I think I got my metaphors mixed. Whatever, you get the idea. The point is, there's something interesting off every exit on I-15, and I plan to explore them all.